All right, let's get into this week's mailbag. If you want to participate, you can email info@davidpakman.com. Remember that we do get hundreds of emails every day. We feature about 8 to 10. So please, 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 with peace and love, don't get mad if yours doesn't make it on. Let's jump right into one that is horrible, unfortunately. Really, really bad stuff. Why do Jews keep getting expelled? Asks H. Why were you people expelled from 109 countries if you did nothing wrong? Isn't that a bit strange? If you really think it over, if I got kicked out 109 times from every shop in the area, at what point should I recognize I'm doing something wrong? Not blaming all Jews, David, but certainly you people are doing something wrong. There's no anti-Semitism from me. My friends are Jewish. But at what point do we stop pretending that all Jews are innocent? Just asking questions. This, my friends, is a bona fide, classic anti-Semite. And I have Jewish friends. Do I really need to say more about that one? I'm feeling like the answer is no, so I won't. Let's continue. A sad message from Brady. Brady from Indiana says, "Hey, David, my family and I are in a bit of a situation. All of my family have been lifetime Republicans, but despite that, they're all vaccinated. That's good. But my sister is hesitant and refusing to get it due to misinformation. She believes the usual propaganda surrounding vaccine misinformation and is even thinking about taking ivermectin, even though we've told her the dangers. We've tried talking to her about it, but it always ends up in a fight or argument, and I'm kind of at a loss. She's even thinking about quitting her job due to the mandates. It's also hard on the family because we usually never argue over stuff like this. Do you have suggestions or advice? Appreciate it. Love the show. Keep up the great work. If you could not show my email if you cover this, that would be great." Of course, we are not showing your email address. We never would. Listen, here's the thing. I keep going back to the Socratic method of questioning, which is presumably her beliefs about the vaccine being bad and ivermectin being good are coming all from sources to some degree that she has a similar relationship to. She's chosen some media sources that say the truth about the vaccine, which she doesn't believe. And yet she's chosen some media sources that say things about ivermectin, which she does believe. And so often what I've heard from other viewers is when you explain to them, you're trusting sources on ivermectin with the same arbitrary nature with which you're not trusting sources about the vaccine. If you get them to come to the realization, that can be useful. But it's tough. It's very, very tough. I don't know that I have real advice beyond that, but let us know how it goes. And I'm sorry you're in that situation. Jeffrey wrote to me and said, "David, I think sometimes you can be hilarious. When you said yesterday, I don't know many race car drivers, and you said Butch Earnhardt, I literally laughed out loud. I don't agree with 90% of what you say, but I watch your show every day, and you make me laugh sometimes. Keep up the good work. Thanks for streaming the Rittenhouse trial, even though I'm sure it cost you in the long run." Yes, we are. I appreciate the kind words. We are now unbanned from Twitch. We were originally banned for 30 days due to a gory exhibit that was displayed on Twitch during our Rittenhouse stream. They, after 11 days with no explanation, unbanned us, and we're back on Twitch and have been streaming there this week. So it's all very opaque, but at the end of the day, we're glad to be back. Mark wrote in about the January 6th alleged Trump rioter who has fled to Belarus, entering the country illegally and now asking for asylum. Mark says, "American in Belarus, not a traitor? David, it's Mark from Germany. I know the GOP, as well as Trump and his supporters, love using the terms treason and traitor whenever it's politically convenient, with Trump often talking about the good old days when people were executed for treason, despite Trump never referring to a real case of treason. I'm now curious whether the political right will call the Capitol attacker who's avoiding justice by illegally entering and seeking asylum in Belarus a traitor too. In my opinion, this is a perfect example of treason if we follow the usual right-wing narrative. Of course, the people saying law and order, the people saying due process, the people saying all those things should be saying, wait a second, the Trump rioter who fled to Belarus was charged under the law, was being afforded due process, is wrongly claiming that he's going to be tortured and all that the prosecution is illegitimate, and has decided to flee and illegally enter a different country. They're not saying it because they don't actually care. Their principles are only their principles as far as they're convenient to them. And when the principles are no longer convenient, they abandon them. But of course, Mark from Germany is 100% correct. This is kind of funny. Every once in a while, I get an email that makes me wonder whether I've lost my mind. Colin wrote to me when I asked last week about, can you help me find the show in which I did an Alex Jones impression? And Colin says, I think the caller is referencing your Nixon impression from a few days back. Unless I have completely lost my mind, I have not done a Nixon impression on this program, at least for years, maybe never. And when I see this, like from Colin, who says the caller is referring to your Nixon impression, I start to wonder whether I've lost my mind. But we checked, we looked. I definitely didn't do a Nixon impression. I don't know what it's all about, but it's interesting. Brett wrote in about COVID boosters and says, hey, David, considering many Americans received their second COVID shot in April and May, and it appears we need a booster shot at 6 months, should we expect a rise in breakthrough cases over the next months? Well, we don't have to wonder, Brett. We are seeing it. We are seeing a significant increase in cases in the United States. Now, I just got my third dose a week and a half ago, and I'm glad that I did. The question has been, is it every 6 months, or does the third dose provide longer protection? So far, we have good-looking data from Israel, which seems to say with a third shot, the protection lasts longer. It doesn't seem to start to wane at 6 months. Now, that's what it seems like right now. The virus can evolve, it can change, etc. And then a lot of these beliefs can change. But right now, cases are going up. And what's really crazy is there are more people in the US right now getting third shots than getting first shots. In other words, a bunch of the people now showing up as getting doses are already vaccinated to some degree. And that doesn't bode particularly well for our path towards herd immunity. So that's not good. We talked about Ron DeSantis earlier this week, and Matthew wrote in and said, hey, David, why should we be scared of Ron DeSantis? He seems like a regular corporate Republican, not a Trumpist. At least when I see him speak, it's just regular Republican talking points, not necessarily Trumpist things. I'm sure if he becomes president, I'll disagree with a lot of his policies, and sure, he's an ass. But why should we be scared he'll destroy our democracy like Trump did if he became president? I completely disagree with Matthew. Ron DeSantis is a very Trumpian Republican. He has a lot of Donald Trump's worst instincts to do the opposite of what the science says on COVID, to push these big lies about election fraud. And he announced a few weeks ago he's opening a commission or something to investigate election fraud. It's like, nobody, Trump won Florida. Nobody's even calling into question Florida. He is bonkers out of his mind, but horrifyingly, he is more competent than Donald Trump. So I completely disagree that Ron DeSantis is just kind of a regular Republican. If you look at Mitt Romney and Ron DeSantis, there's very little in common. Very, very little. I'm not praising Mitt Romney. I'm just stating a fact. There is no comparison between DeSantis and real non-Trump Republicans like Mitt Romney, the late John McCain, the late Colin Powell, and others. And we got to be very, very scared if Ron DeSantis is the 2024 nominee. Aaron says about Kyle Rittenhouse, Kyle is a depreciating political commodity. Regardless of the trial outcome, Kyle is a depreciating political commodity that will end up worthless after his 2 weeks of fame are over. He will never have a substantive career. One Google search will destroy his any chance he has of making anything of himself. Well, unless it's in right-wing media and right-wing agitation. I do agree that after the not guilty verdicts from last week, Rittenhouse is definitely getting his 15 minutes of fame, appearing on Fox News, being flown all around, and he's definitely getting some fame right now. I do agree that in terms of getting a normal job, working as if he ever actually becomes an EMT or whatever, it seems he's got an uphill climb ahead of him. But I wouldn't be shocked if Rittenhouse ends up being a successful firearms YouTuber. I wouldn't be shocked if Rittenhouse ends up as a CPAC speaker. In that space, I actually think he probably does have a future now that he's being lionized and being made a hero out of. But I do think that his usefulness will be quite limited to that. And I'm curious to see, I mean, by January, how many people are talking about him. I don't know. We're going to wait and see. Jeremy wrote in and said, hey, David, can't Joe Biden use an executive order to pass the original $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan? Regards, Jeremy. No. My research is that he cannot, and that something like the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan needs to go through Congress. It relates to appropriating money, and it is not something that Joe Biden can do via executive order. I don't even know that I need to say more about it because my understanding is that cut and dry, very, very simple and straightforward. If someone has a different perspective on that, could Joe Biden implement elements of Build Back Better through executive order? Maybe. Let me know. But no, my research, and we have looked at it very strongly, is you can't pass Build Back Better via executive order. And lastly today, Chris wrote in and Chris says, thank you. This is just like a nice message. We don't get that many of these. Thank you. Hey, David, I've been watching your show for a while. I very much appreciate what you do. You've consistently been a voice of reason in the left-wing space online. It hasn't gone unnoticed that you understand how the type of content you put out affects people in real life. I know it would be easy to grab more views to put out a spicy Fauci video or cover conspiracies, but you understand that only serves to create more doubt around the efforts to save lives. I've had a few people in my life pass away from COVID-19, and all of them watched prominent YouTubers or online podcasters who were, quote, only asking questions about COVID and the COVID vaccines. You care about your audience and we can see it. Your work is invaluable. Thank you. Chris, thank you. I really appreciate that. And, it can be very easy to focus on, like the first email that I showed you, disgusting anti-Semitism directed specifically at me. And it's great to hear from Chris. I really appreciate that. Remember that we are going to be off tomorrow, Thursday for Thanksgiving, and Friday for Thanksgiving. We will then be back on Monday. Federal Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States, everybody taking a much needed break, and we will be back with you Monday. But before that, there's the bonus show. If you're a member at joinpakman.com, sign up at joinpakman.com. You can get access to the bonus show. Otherwise, we'll see you back here on Monday.